Hello, hello, hello. What's up, everybody in Westworld Riders? It's time to get back down that rabbit hole. And of course, the one coming down and taking that venture with me is the one and only Red Bearded Knowledge. What's good with you tonight, Andy?
I'm pretty excited to talk about this episode. Probably more rightness on my part, a little bit.
I just point those out. We didn't see which ones are which. Let the people know which ones you already called.
Yeah, I don't even remember what I say. So much shenanigans. There's no way to know whether I'm right unless I go back, and that's not happening.
Yeah, that's the hard part. That's the only reason I would know is when I go back and actually rewatch the stuff. I'm like, oh, I absolutely called that, and absolutely called. There we go. Oh my god, I didn't even realize he called that, especially like 2 years ago. It's like who remembers what we were talking about 2 years ago? We've been through other series since then. But man, what do you think about this episode compared to the other three? How's this one rate? Compared to all three, how does this one rate?
I like it because I think they're setting up more stuff. Like I said, it seems like they're trying to show that Dolores doesn't actually know what the real world is. Where she thinks she does. She thinks she knows people, and Caleb kind of throws a wrench in that, which points to my simulation more that that was her feeling about William in the first place. And then, yeah, I liked it. I liked it at least as much as last week. So there's that. Probably better than the first week.
Is it your favorite of the three? Right in the middle?
It's probably my favorite of the three, just because there's more. It was opening some doors on some things. Like you're getting a little bit more. Charlotte, whatever the actress name, she was doing some pretty good acting. So I liked it. It was probably my favorite, but at least, the last two I've liked more than the first one.
You didn't like the first one that much. It was just a little too jarring, a little too different for what you were ready for.
It was not that. It was just that, the 2-year hiatus and that last season, so coming into the first, you don't have as much excitement. It did a good job building it up, so I'm probably underselling it a little bit. But that makes the other ones later, the later episodes better for me personally.
We got Jake Cruz out in the chat saying he's not a fan of them going back and forth between the stories, but you already know that's what it is. I mean, that's just Westworld. You just kind of have to expect that. I mean, they're going to keep dancing, whether it's timelines or stories or mirror worlds, which we're going to be getting into. I mean, they're just going to keep dancing around that and always keep you guessing. That's just kind of what Westworld is. But this week opened right up with the making of Charlotte, and Dolores says, bring yourself back online. Andy, are we any closer to knowing who is in Hale's body? I mean, let's just not even dance around the big picture.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we know that it's a dude based on the interactions. Because so this is gonna seem weird and pop culture-ish. Not even pop culture, just modern stuff. The fact that she's mutilating herself is she doesn't feel comfortable in her body, and I think a lot of this episode was really about speaking to modern society rather than future society. It's just portraying a different view of modern society, something you could view. I forget what the word is because I'm speaking, but it's painting a picture. It has similar things. God, what is the word? Whatever. So she's mutilating herself, and she doesn't like who she is in her own body. I think that's they're actually talking about transgenderism in the show, right?
Really? That's what you got out of it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the thing. She doesn't like who she is. She wants to be someone different, and it's a whole thing going. I think that's whatever the word is when they do that. They
self-mutilation or self?
No. Okay. So, for example, X-Men is a comic about racism and stuff. That's what it originally was, where you portrayed these people getting treated differently than modern society and unfairly. There's a name for that. They weren't actually talking about say black people or whatever. They didn't actually put black people in. They made mutants, a different thing, but you knew it tells a story in a real way that you would understand, right? and it speaks a underlying truth, and that you can project it onto something else, like the Lord of the Rings, deforestation, whatever that system is called. That's what this was. So I'm pretty sure it
she
was
becomes free and has to pretend to be someone else.
And I'm pretty sure that it was Abernathy. Like, I'm getting on that train.
Really? Well, I'm glad to see, like, right out of the gate that once again we completely disagree. So that's awesome. I know I'm back on track if that's what's up.
Yeah. Hey, I don't know. I've been shooting like pretty high percentage.
Shooting straight. I'm just saying. I know that the podcast is back on track if we are complete different opposite ends of the spectrum.
True.
But yeah, I'm still 100% that the Martin, Liam's bodyguard, is going to be Peter Abernathy. There is not a doubt in my mind about that. I am obviously wavering on my Charlotte bot host. We'll get into it a little bit later, but I 100% think it's female. Not at all. I don't think. And while we're talking about it, the only person, and I'll just put this one little thing in there, the only person I've ever really seen dig into their arm like that was Dolores when they were out in the crazy place with Logan and William in the big porno place out in the West where it gets all crazy. And she saw that string and she kept pulling on it and it was pulling her arm. That's the only time I've ever seen anything like that really happen. Now we've seen like the guys mutilate themselves.
Not true. The Man in Black. We've seen the Man in Black do that. Cut into his arm. Cut into his own
arm. I'm saying the way she was like peeling at it, like there was some thread in there that she needed to unravel her. The way she was going at her arm, like cutting just into her arm like that. The only one I've seen like that, like with the Man in Black, took out a knife and wanted to see if he was a robot or not. Like that was a specific thing.
Yeah, but if it's like, isn't it weird that there's like an internal fight? Like that's the question, right? That's the real thing that you get from this is, what are they talking about? Is it like a high? So we got to come up with some different terms and just you got to display them on the top because now we can't. I'm coming up with we can't have hybrids because I think maybe this is a system of a hybrid with a host programmed on top of it, right? So you have the Hale. You created a Hale little whatever they call it, the Pearl. And then, so you have that base level because you have to have that because she has certain knowledge that the host wouldn't. And then you overlay on top of that a host soul or body or their mind. So then it's two things in together. Now one has more privileges than the other, but one program can access certain things. But that's the only explanation, right? Because just because you look like somebody, Dolores was inside Hale the whole time last time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. And that does bring up, like someone said in the chat, that brings up a good question. And or maybe you just said it. I don't know. What if it's Dolores actually in there? And someone is more powerful than Dolores and has her body? And what if it's Hobo?
What if you think it's Hobo inside Dolores's body?
Well, I'm just saying, what if? Like, it could be.
Oh, it could be. And we're going to be talking all about that. Absolutely. Because, yeah, that's 100% where I'm at with it. And it gets down into it. But, exactly. If you think about Dolores, like right when she comes online, she talks with like a little bit of a country girl accent. The only two people that did that were either country girl Dolores and Clementine. She hates the fact that she's Hale, says that why her, she tried to kill us, all of us. And she came to, she was bawling, like she remembers what she did. I mean, what bots would come to bawling? Why would they come to crying? Why would Peter Abernathy come through crying like that? I mean, maybe crying that he's in a woman's body, but...
No, Peter Abernathy, he was already kind of going crazy, right? Like, his whole shit was messed up. So he would have a similar reaction, I think. And he was concerned with people, the humans, like killing them. Like at the end, he didn't like that.
No, he didn't. But this person, she came back bawling like she remembered what happened right before she went out. And the people that seemed like they would be crying, there's three of them. It seems like Dolores, But I don't know why Dolores would cry. That's the only thing that kind of throws me off about it being Dolores. But she might just cry because she's looking at herself like, why am I looking at myself and why am I in this body? And she specifically says, why do you get to be you? Like, I'm you too. Why can't I be me? Like, why do you get to be you and I can't be you? You know, I can't be me. So that's one of the things that really makes me think it's Dolores. I mean, there's a bunch of things that we're going to be talking about that comes through. But the other ones that, like, it could be, I think it's got to either be Maeve, Maeve, Dolores, Clementine, or what I really think's going on and what we're going to talk about. I think she's a Frankenstein. I think they talked about later on in the thing at the very end, actually. Yeah, we'll get into that. But I think it's a Frankenstein.
Well, that was a good question. Something you said that, what if Maeve? Okay, because we're assuming, right? This is happening in like.
Yeah, we don't have to go in order. We can talk about whatever. Yep.
We gotta stop. We gotta stop assuming that it's a linear thing, because I do that myself often. I'm like, hold on, I gotta go back. Anytime I say, yeah, but this in my own head, like, wait, I have to think, did I assume that? And that's the thing. Dolores, we're assuming that Dolores left Hale's body. And I guess we can't do that. Plus, in the episode, I was thinking, when did Dolores, I guess she did get commands over people, but it seems she has a lot of control over the host. What if that's just Maeve? Maeve has that power. Like, what's happening in a certain way? Like, this could be the simulation saying, hey, we're going to give Maeve Dolores's body and we're going to see what happens in this situation. Because at one point, and the reason I thought hobo, hold on, I got too many strands going in my own head. But this is a conspiracy hour. But now we've seen two people, right, put on glasses and see a hologram of somebody. What if that hologram is a view into the mirror world, into the hobo simulation? So it's someone in the simulation talking to someone on the outside, and it's just they don't know, right? So then the Dolores that does the stuff in the first place, she's not really Dolores, and she's not really there. But I guess someone had to put the thing on his head, so maybe never mind. I don't know.
Got Chrysius Oldstones out there saying you look absolutely great. Welcome back. Good to see you again. Welcome back, Peter Griffin. I see you out there. Jake Cruz, what's up? Absolutely. Yeah, think about with Maeve. It could absolutely be Maeve, and we're gonna talk about that too, but yeah, it could be Maeve in there, it could be Dolores in there. When she came back crying, it's gonna, like I said earlier, it seemed like she was somebody remembering what she did. Dolores could be mad, the way she came back killing everybody, or the fact she's looking at somebody. Maeve could be crying because she knows she lost her daughter and she's never going to see her again and she died. Clementine, it really could have been Clementine crying because she could have been, just disgusted about what she did, riding through there, making all the hosts kill each other. And then that would have made her really sick. Like, why does it have to be Hale? Why do I have to be her? She tried to kill us. Like, so it could really be Clementine with all that.
But wouldn't he know more about, like, Abernathy would know more about the intentions, right? Like, he would hate Hale more than everybody because of the programming she was sneaking out, right? And that really messed with his head. But yeah, I'm just saying.
I don't even remember. Did Hale and Abernathy run into each other?
No, but I think, remember, she tried, when the one host didn't work, they put the stuff in Abernathy. They stole it from so yeah, she did run into him. Remember, they stole Abernathy from the basement?
Yeah.
To put the code into him, so he would understand.
Right. Hey. Yeah, I gotta get back to that. I forgot about that part. Well, I think this episode definitely pointed out or answered one of my questions that's always drove me nuts. I'm always going crazy about how did Dolores get her pearl from Hale bot into her bot? Because there has to be a third person, and we never saw a third person. And I'm like, how does that happen? And I mean, I really never got an answer to that. Like, how could that happen? Obviously, that pearl got put from Hale into Dolores. There has to be a third bot to make this happen, and nobody ever had an answer for me. I think they're telling us now there has to be at least 2 Hales. And I mean, obviously, these timelines are different. Like, they're kind of showing it like on a linear timeline, like it's all just happening, but no, it's jumping all around. And part of this is happening in one spot, and part of it's happening in another, and it's different timelines.
One of those spots is a simulation.
Oh, one of them is absolutely, and that's what we're going to be getting into real quick. Is one of them is absolutely Mirror World. You're right, but like the way yeah, I was going to say the way like Dolores kind of or the way that Hale walked up to that riot robot and then kind of pet it, the same way Dolores kind of walked up to the horse and pet it. That was like another similar attribute that kind of points towards Dolores. But so we're already in agreement that this is definitely a different timeline, or is this like right before they break out of the park? Like when she's making Hale, like when they were showing the beginning of Hale at the beginning of this, is this right at the beginning, right when they broke out of the park? Did she instantly do it? I think she had to. Or is this like something's happened and now she's gone back there to make another Hale because Hale's dead? Hale got killed off or something. Something happened to her.
Yeah, I think maybe that is right when that happens. But there's weird stuff. Like I'm kind of confused in some of it. If there would be no reason for Dolores to attack that person. Also, we clearly have that she's already using Hobo, right? To her full, that she can predict things, like I said last week. Because she knew all about, so she knows everything about him. So she already has access to Hobo. So I don't know what all her stuff is, but I think that at this point, that simple spot was them actually bringing her back. God dang, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not. I go into it too much. I end up on like the fidelity test loop. I'm like, no.
Jake Cruz says, I think Hale is one of the Indians. The savage comment, I think, was an Easter egg. I was kind of trying to think about that too earlier, Jake. I was trying to think, like, what if she's one of the natives? But I just don't think there's one really prominent enough. I mean, the only one would be Akachete or whatever. And we saw that he made it into the Sublime. So I'm just not sure what native it would be. But feel it. Yeah, that's my name today. I am the host, Doppelbot11. That's awesome. So time seems to be of the essence with Charlotte. Dolores says we only have a little bit of time. Later in the episode, Serac says she's running out of time. There's a part where her secretary says the school called and she's running late. Like, is this running low on time going to be like a major factor in this season? Is that going to be a thing?
Yes. This is that thing where they're talking about, so in those points, that's the simulation. Like they're simulating things in that point because they're saying we are catching up to real time. We have to make a switch. Like you have to do something in order to complete this simulation in this amount of time. That's the only points when you would need to reference like an end to a timeline, right? Like something is coming that's going to stop our ability to do anything else. So to me, like, I think I caught that too. I'm like, man, they keep talking about running out of time and stuff. It's almost time. And I think that's them in the simulation catching up to real time.
Yep. And speaking of Chekhov guns, I mean, how big a thing are these riot bots going to end up being? I mean, the CGI was totally dope, but there has to be a bigger reason than them making a whole scene about this riot squad bot. Like, they're going to come through thunder and basically, I mean, is that just going to be Dolores's army, or is there going to be a bigger thing with that?
That's going to be her army, sort of, but I'm almost thinking that it's going to come down to like Dolores having to help humans in a way, like almost like she looks at herself as superior to humans, but in reality, she realizes that the hobo is superior to her if she is superior to humans, and it's going to get used in a situation like that. But you're right. Because they do it later in the episode, you know, when Dolores activates Caleb's robot, right? His partner. She activates that, and Yeah, I don't know. That's just saying that she can't control these things, right? She has that.
She can or she can't.
She can. Right? She's started up that robot. So that's saying we showed you the big robot. We saw Hale like, yeah, we're gonna control this bad boy, and then we actually get proof that Dolores can do it later in the episode when she saves Caleb.
Huh. You think that's how that other robot came up?
Yeah.
Huh. I didn't. Yeah. We got Cruz wants to know. Do you think any of the Samurai World characters are gonna make a return?
I'm sure everybody will. And there'll be a return somewhere with everybody, some little thing, but I don't know if they'll have any major roles.
Nice. We got Chrissy Oldstone saying she's rooting for Dolores this season, but always Team Maeve. Yeah, I think a lot of people, of course, were on Dolores' team first season. Not such a fan of her second season, and it looks like she's winning a whole bunch of fans back this third season.
I don't get it. I mean, I like Caleb, but I still don't like Dolores.
I think it's kind of looking like she's going to be maybe ending up more for the humans than she is for the bots by the end of this. Maybe that's what they're thinking.
Yeah, but that's the key to a redemption, right? If she has like a hero's journey, she has to have some level of redemption. So I can like her way before her redemption. I can dislike her before her redemption, which I should do, right? I should hate her before she's redeemed. And maybe Caleb will pull her back in, but maybe she's already too far gone and Caleb is just a figment of her imagination sent there to change her path, like William.
Oh, there you go. That's real of him. He's not even there. It's just a figment trying to get her to do something different. That would be a sick twist. I like that. I don't think so, but I would love it.
Well, I mean, as like a tragic backstory and stuff, like, I don't know. I feel like, I'm not saying this is guaranteed what it would be, but I'm just saying that's a legit possibility because just like Hobo has information on all the humans, if they could access Westworld, then they would have everything to do with Dolores. They would know all those interactions with the people, and then they could use that to manipulate her. They saw like how years later she's like, William will come to save me, right? Against the Man in Black. So they know that that's deep ingrained in her. So I'm just saying. But
that would be an awesome twist. I love that. The Sirach's putting Caleb there to throw a kink in her plan to like get her off her path. I love that.
But I still think that Caleb's the one they can't predict. That's me.
Nice. So we find out that there's a kink in the plan to go private. Someone's been secretly buying up the stock on the down low and is now the major shareholder. So Sirach's been doing this for a minute, and we get a little bit more. Again, is this showing like when they come back later and say that like there's absolutely no info on this guy, but it's yet just a black hole of $1 trillion is the only reason that we even know he exists? Is that more proof that he's just really image of Rehoboam and not a real person, or is he really just that Black Ops Black Shadow?
To me, I'm like, yep, that's it. He's just someone created in the simulation. Like maybe he's Hobo's representation in the simulation, but there's an important thing in the timeline, right? So William, how long ago did William visit Westworld for the first time? Do we remember that? When was the first visit to Westworld by William before he invested?
When Logan brought him in.
But how long ago was that?
Oh yeah, we have no idea, dude. That's one thing.
I think we do, right?
We lost on.
It was like 20 something years because we got to think like 20 years or whatever, or 23 years. I thought we figured out. I'm sure it's in some timeline somewhere. 33 years. Because 20 years ago is when that investor started buying up stuff. Now, when did Ford decide to start helping the bots, like the hosts? So that I think there's a clue in there that I'm too stupid to remember, but I think that's important that it happened approximately 2 decades ago. And Someone got involved at that point, and I wonder what it is. Maybe the Man in Black did it, but maybe it was Ford and my simulation thing. That's when they switched up Ford, and it was like, oh, if Ford starts doing this, we can invest in this company. We can take over for this situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, wouldn't that totally have to be Ford? I mean, he realized that people are trying to dabble in his world and like in there that he's the god. And I mean, basically, Westworld is all his. So basically, wouldn't it be him that would have set something in motion all those years ago to privately start buying it up? So if they ever did try to out him or wanted to do something, he could be like, kiss my ass, I'm actually the private owner and this is all mine. Like, that makes perfect sense to me. What's good? One True David Adams just hit the chat. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. But yeah, that's what makes sense to me. Is like Ford always seemed to be one step ahead of the game against everybody. So wouldn't you be the same way on the outside world and kind of have seen this coming?
Well, here's a question. Now that we know that there's this person that owns a majority stock in the company, a majority share, or the most of anybody, not really majority, but what if he's the guy that they were talking about in the original meeting? Maybe that happens after all this, and that is the guy, right? So that is outside of the simulated world, and they have to, since he's not a real person, and
well, those guys seem to know who it was, though. They're like, he's not here. You can't, he's not here to make the decision. And maybe, I mean, they could be that, because that's what we said right now. That's what I said that very first episode. It has to be the Man in Black or Sirach. Everybody was like, it has to be Man in Black, but I was like, it could be Sirach. But
I'm confusing myself too. Don't worry about
it. But yeah, I mean, that's what we said right there in the very first episode, and that's yet to be defined. I mean, which one that's going to end up being. But the fact that Hale was able to speak for it, I don't know. Unless, because Sirach would think that Hale is still basically the mole, so that's why the bot would be like, we are in agreement, because he thinks Hale is still working for him. So, I mean, it does add up. It could go down like that. Absolutely.
But I'm just thinking, like, if it started 20 years ago, is that when the simulation starts, right? Because they said when someone got involved in Westworld's technology, right? So the data sampling or the data collection. So if that's when all these investments started happening, that would really help them predict things in the future, right? So once you get all that information, you realize like some crazy shit's going to go down, and we have 20 years to do this. Let's start buying up little bit at a time. So when this eventually happens, we have the majority. We get to make the decisions there.
Oh, you want to talk about some prediction and go on tinfoil lane? What if Charlotte is really Charlie, Arnold's kid, and this whole song, just like we saw it, was a way to call Sirach? It's a secret message to Charlie as a little kid. So Hale, her real Hale mother, basically sang a song to her son Charlie that was like a message for what he needs to do if anything happened to her. And basically he grows up and he's the one who's like kind of bought into all this stuff, and he's going to end up being the extra guy. And where was I going with that? I was like, I had a great finish on that, and it just, like, while I was talking, I was laughing so hard in my own head that I lost it. But that could be sick. Hale is sending a message to Charlie in a song that he depicts and basically uses that later, 20 years later, to be the one that's buying up all the property. So he's the one that ends up with all the money or the park or whatever it ends up being, the power. That would be insane.
Could be.
That would be insane. I'm sorry, but do you think Irene, Charlotte's assistant, got that part before she got that pregnant? Like in the time that she filmed?
Yeah.
I mean, dude, she looked like I don't know. I'm sorry, but I couldn't get away from that. It looked like she was about to pop at any second. Like I was ready for a baby to be born in the scene, like for real. I mean, she was ready to burst, it looked like. I was like, damn, girl. And I was like, they couldn't recast it, or they're like, oh, fuck it. She's only got a couple lines. It won't be too dangerous for the baby. I thought that was wild. I don't know. That didn't take you out at all, or you didn't think anything when you saw her walk out? I mean, I don't know, dude.
I just saw her giant. I was like, holy moly, that's a pregnant ass lady.
I just thought she was ready to go into labor, like on set. That was kind of it was tripping me out. So with Dolores and Caleb, and with that scene when they were in the emergency vehicle, this just totally made me think that this is all definitely happening in a simulation. I mean, it just seemed like a video game happening. And like when they first asked, you know her, and he said no, they wouldn't just let some stranger jump in an ambulance with her. And then they said, and they sure as hell wouldn't be letting some weird stranger just start hooking up IVs. Like, oh, we can't figure out, the machine's not telling us what to do. And he's like, she needs this and this, and knows right where to go, and starts pulling shit out and hooks up IVs and has her going. I'm like, there is just no way this is real. That has to be a simulation. That scene. Then I'm like, dude, this is a video game. The cops shooting him through I'm like, this is a video game. So to me, that scene is what's letting us know that half of what we're seeing is happening inside Mirror World.
Well, sort of. I think that you're right in that it's like a video game because they're like NPCs. They don't know what to do without being told what to do. That was the point of that scene, I think, is that's why it points to Caleb being the unpredictable one, right? He has certain knowledge and he's willing to use it. He doesn't have his drip that sedates him essentially and makes him more suggestible, right? He doesn't do that. So his outward knowledge, that it's a problem for this society because that's what Dolores was talking about in the very beginning. The whole society was built on the fact there's something wrong with the society and one thing can destroy it. And that's the thing is Hobo is controlling everything. When they couldn't get the stuff, they didn't know what to do. They're paramedics, but they're like, well, the computer's not telling us what to do. They couldn't assess her on the scene, but he who was out on it, he didn't have all that stuff and he doesn't use his machine like he's supposed to. He's like, oh shit, I know what to do. And then people are suggestible. If you're used to being told what to do, a new person coming in telling you what to do when the person the person that normally does isn't there, that's a power vacuum. And he took over in the power vacuum. That's why they're willing to do that.
I don't know. You got One True David Adams saying exactly, Caleb taking charge. Peter Griffin, dependency on technology. They forget how to take blood pressure. Jake Cruz, this is the future Gen X times 5. I'm just not buying it. Christian Oldstone says everyone ends up like that. People in spaceship. I just don't think. I mean, doctors today have a hell of a lot more technology than doctors 50 years ago had. But I would say doctors today are a hell of a lot better than doctors 50 years ago. With all this technology, they didn't forget how to become doctors. They actually used it, enhanced it, and became better doctors. So I don't think these EMTs would just be like, oh, I'm an idiot now. I have to have a machine tell me what to do or I don't know what to do. I'm not buying that. They would have been in there and they'd have been doing medical CPR shit on her. Caleb trying to do, and they sure as hell wouldn't let some random dude just start setting the IVs and do. I mean, there's just no way that happened like that. That is 100% a simulation. That does not happen in real life.
As someone who works in the medical field, I can tell you that when a doctor doesn't have a tool that they're used to using, it's gone. A lot of them do not know what to do, right? There are multiple tests, now CT scans used a lot, right? But there's fluoroscopy, which you can see inside the body essentially, but it's a 2D image, but you can get similar results. You can see similar things, just not as accurately, almost just like this situation. And doctors will choose not to do the fluoroscopy because they don't know how to do it when it's something that, or they haven't done it in a while. A really long time, so they don't do it. And this is something that really happens even today when CT is not available and doctors don't want to use fluoro. That's something that happens that could work and they choose not to. So I'm just throwing it out there that your doctor's example is not a great one.
I disagree. I think it was better than the rebuttal, but we'll let it go and let the chat figure it out and decide. But I don't know, because of basically everything you said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't stop the fact that I believe doctors today are 1,000% better and more knowledgeable than doctors of yesteryear were.
Yeah, but when they don't have what they rely on, typically they're worse doctors. Whereas that doctor, when they,
I mean, you said for example, but what about a guy that goes into a restaurant and the guy's choking and he runs up and he does, the Heimlich or whatever, or he's got something in there and he needs to shove a pen and goes MacGyver and shoves a pen down his throat to get air going. I mean, I just think these situations happen and it's not with a machine telling them what to do. That's like they're using their own skills to make it happen.
Yeah, but we rely on things. That's what I'm saying. We rely on things because they're available. And when that thing no longer becomes available, we don't know what to do, even though we should know what to do. Like here's the example you have to do. A doctor 40 years ago and a doctor today, but they both have to use the technology of 40 years ago. The doctor who is from 40 years ago is going to be a better doctor in that moment. Because the diagnosis
the doctor from 40 years ago is going to be like, here, put this spit and chewing tobacco on it. It'll take care of it. And the doctor today will be like, no, actually, that's really not sanitary. And what we need to do is this.
You're underestimating 40-year-old. 40 years isn't that long. 1980. We're not talking about freaking 1916 or something.
Maybe. So later we find out that there is a mirror world, and I think this scene is a lot more actually having to do with mirror world. That's why those thugs thought that. That's why those thugs thought he knew who Dolores was, or where Dolores was, and the simulation figured that that was the most likely outcome. So was that scene all just for Dolores to entice Caleb? Like, why act hurt and then just leave him there? Like, was it just to give him time to tie up loose ends, or like he's like, "What's your name, Caleb?" Not anymore. Like, is this just all of breaking his loop, or was that for him? Was she even really hurt? Did she need that air that he gave him? Like, what was that all about?
Yeah, I think, like I said, Caleb can't be predicted. So this is that situation for Caleb. The biggest thing that you have to why this is a simulation at this point is the dudes just start randomly shooting, but they don't shoot either Caleb. They shoot both the paramedics. And it's like creating a simulation of a dangerous situation, making them think it's a dangerous situation when it's, it's set up that way, like Westworld. And I think even, I don't know if we just got to talk about it in the after show thing, but they called this Future World. Did you see that?
Mm-mm.
Charlotte calls it Future World.
Did she?
Yeah, in the thing when they're talking about how it's made and whatever. So that made me think, like, when I just said that, like, it's the simulation. It's set up to be a dangerous situation. Just like Westworld is set up to be dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It seemed like a video game. Like, it could totally just, this is just another simulation. I thought it was them in Mirror World, like, showing what would happen if this happened. But, I mean, maybe it is just him in Future World doing it, and basically that's it. Chrissy Oldstone says she thought she needed the ambulance to come so the police could track it and find her. She didn't need the medical help. She can't die. So basically, was Dolores just calling that ambulance and then Caleb? But no, because when they asked, her, she grabbed Caleb's hand. Like, she wanted him in there in that situation with her. So, that's what's that?
That's why I think the simulation's for him, not for Dolores.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think it's like he's just another rich guy in here playing this simulation game. That's what it kind of seems like. That's what they made that seem like. Like I said, that whole scene was a video game. That one way or another, that was not real. That wasn't real life to me. Next we had Charlotte staring blankly into a giant circle, and then she looks at her phone that has a giant circle. And is this all subliminal messages that everything is a circle and running in a loop and runs back through Rehoboam?
Probably.
Basically just our subliminal messages saying Rehoboam is the end-all be-all of everything with this.
Maybe it's like a secret society thing. Like Rehoboam Hobo set up a secret society, and that's what's going on. They're all a part of it.
Well, speaking of secret society, Irene comes back with a name, and she's like rightly more than a little scared. Like, this person has likely gone through quite a bit of trouble to become anonymous, and now we know his name. What do you think he's going to do to us? Is Prager's going to get offed, or is she going to make it through the season alive?
I don't know. Let's say she just makes it through alive, just to say so, because I don't know. I didn't even think about it. I just thought about, like it's the simulation. Like I don't know. I was too focused on that. Like, how does he not exist? Well, we have something that doesn't exist in the real world, and that is the whole mirror world. And he is someone from the mirror world that is like,
obviously affecting what's happening in the real world.
Yeah, like a thing that you would apply to the mirror world in order to get changes. Like, what is the external stimuli to change what's happening? And it's this person, and it's essentially like a God figure. You put God in there to do little things, and now you just make up this person that can do whatever you want because everything's electronic. That can happen, right? Like, if the whole world, like, an electronic person could exist today, and we're not even near where that's at, in Westworld. So, just saying that's my theory.
I also have more than that, though, Jake Cruz. I think they're definitely going to put on an extra spin. We're not just getting like a repeat of last season. Like, they're definitely going to put a sick twist on it by the end of it. Hale finally makes it home, and we see a bit of her personal life. And when she was in trouble for getting her son, I just kept thinking, like, why doesn't this person have a nanny? Like, wouldn't somebody or whatever have a nanny? Like, why is it such a problem with her? Obviously, she can't be there on time to pick up her son ever. Like, I don't know. That kind of threw me off, too. Like, is that real? Or because it just seems like she would have somebody taking care of her because she's a rich businesswoman and can't be with her kid very often.
That's true. But she has a dad, right? Like, maybe that's the point. She doesn't take care of her kid enough. Like, she doesn't think about them enough. And the dad obviously cares. So maybe that was the point. I don't know.
Maybe. Nathan asks why she won't take him to see a real elephant, and she says there aren't any. They're all gone now. I believe that's one we called way back in season 2, and Rajworld was a thing because we were like, it's probably a big deal because there's no more wild animals left like that in the real world, which again leads me to believe that this is all just robot simulations and all the real humans have died off a long time ago.
Man, yeah, I think you might have said that.
I did, yeah.
Because I think we did have questions about why would you go to Rajworld and stuff. But yeah, that's a good one. Like, logic, good job, DJ. I'm pretty sure you called that.
So Jake, so Jake Cruz says, how does she know that about it? How does she know everything about Hale's life, but not that she has a kid?
Well, I think if your data collection is from Westworld, like interactions in Westworld, maybe your personal life's just personal. Like,
yeah, you try to separate that. I like that.
So that's way back in episode 1, I said that, like, that's the real problem with Westworld, and it's kind of useless in a way, except for to create the host. But the data collection is useless because this thing has been collecting everybody's data since they were born. So why, like, Westworld doesn't matter as far as that. It creates like a fake person rather than Hobo could actually create a real person. And that's the...
Well, plus you're doing some slutty, dirty shit once you hit Westworld, so you're probably not trying to think of your kids at that point in time. So that's probably like the last thing on your mind. So that probably just that info didn't quite get zapped in. That's what I would think. Well, or that whole thing is a simulation, and basically that's why it was so weird of her just jumping on her man, because that's what the simulation would think. Oh, you lived here for 8 years and I haven't seen you in a while. I instantly want to have sex with you. And yeah, the whole thing was a simulation. And they figured if they'd been together for 8 years that they would have a kid. But maybe they don't even have a kid. Maybe that's all simulated.
Okay. Here's another possibility. If the two things are like we said, it's kind of like two hosts, like one hybrid and one host in the same thing, there has to be like I said, one thing has like admin privileges and the other one doesn't. So it can overwrite things. It can make things access first. So that would mean that stuff's going to be missing. So if you're not accessing, like, let's say Hale is underneath, right? And so you can access certain things from her, but you would have, if you access everything from her, then she's in control, right? Because you basically are her. You're using all your processing power to understand her. So maybe you have to suppress certain things. And maybe that's why she couldn't remember, because they just didn't have that access yet.
I mean, that explains a little bit, because I'm with Chrissy. She's like, how could Insight know the word-for-word conversation between Caleb and the waitress, but not that Charlotte has a kid? Like, that just makes no sense. That doesn't add up at all.
Yeah, but that's Insight. If are we saying it's like Insight? That I feel like that's showing that Dolores and them don't understand the real world like they think they do. Like, if she is someone working for Dolores at that point, she doesn't have, and if this happens before, because right now I think she has all Hobo's information, but originally she did not, right? Even though it happened in episode 3, we saw it in episode 3, doesn't mean it actually happened. And this could have been right after her conversation with Dolores. I don't know, because there's a cut. She looks up and she sees someone in there. That doesn't necessarily mean that was at that point. It's just like in season 1, there was time jumps in scenes, right? In the middle of a scene. It just like a cut from one scene, like on the train, you saw time jumps, but they didn't tell you that. So I'm just saying, we can't exclude the fact that it might be right before Dolores has access to Hobo.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the way the timelines are jumping around, no one really knows. Do you think Nathan can really tell that Hale is not his mommy? Like, I think just like the animals, young kids can sense their mother's like specific smell, and Hale wouldn't have that. Also, she didn't know the right way to tuck him in. When she was lying on him, I was like, Jesus, this robot's gonna crush him. Like the last line of the scene was, I want my real mommy back. So do you think that Nathan can tell that's not really his mom?
Yeah, it's like you said last week. Somehow the kids could tell there was something off about the Dolores. Remember you said last week the girl said, you're not one of us, right? I think you're all kind of onto something there when this came up. Like, if this is, let's say that this is a simulation, we'll go take it to my theory. If this is a simulation at this point, it's simulating reality to adults, but it conforms it in a way that adult would understand and say, that is real. That does not fool me, right? Because the computer knows everything about this adult. But in kids' minds are different. It hasn't had all that time to data collect on them, and all the way up to like 13 years old, this mind is morphing so much. Like, kids' personalities change in that time frame. Like, there's no way that a computer can predict exactly how that's going to happen. And so kids maybe have this ability to recognize when something's not right, because it can't be predicted in the same way, because there's not enough data collected over the years to predict it. So they can see through it. They're like, this isn't real. That's just, yeah, I just got to support my theory.
I like that. Back to Delos, and can I just say their office building layout was dope. I mean, out in the middle of the water like that. Like, how cool an office building was that? But when that guy came in to let Hale know there was a mole, did you have any idea who it was, or did you know right away it was her?
Yeah, I was pretty sure it was her, because we knew that she was involved in like the stealing of stuff from Westworld. So we knew that from the beginning. We knew that season 1. So I thought it was talking about her, but she didn't know her kids. She doesn't know that she's the mole.
So they tell Hale the host control units are missing. Most are low level, but one, a madam, is not. Last episode, and this is what I was kind of slowing down talking about earlier, but last episode we saw Maeve was in cold storage and the back of her head was shredded and missing her pearl. And we know that when the Westworld people remove a ball, like it's with a machine and it's all like super nice and neat. And Maeve's looked like it was ripped out with somebody's bare hand. Is there any way that the Dolores Hale bot took Maeve as one of those pearls?
Yeah, I have that in my thing too. Like maybe this was Dolores finally gets access to Hobo, right? And then puts Maeve in there to try to, she's like trying to get Teddy back because Dolores wasn't there when Maeve was doing what she was doing. But she just wants to understand. Like, I understand it doesn't make as much sense for them to go down into the area to get, if Dolores put Maeve in there. But like, if you are trying to get extra information from Maeve, like that would be a way. Like, no, you're wrong. Say that's like a common trick in getting people to divulge some too much information is like accuse them of something that you both know is false, but they don't know that you know it's false. So then people are willing to say, no, that's a lie, and here is why, when normally they wouldn't give out that information. So that's like interrogation technique. So I'm wondering if in this time, like Dolores has access to Hobo and she put her in there because maybe she wants Teddy back. And because he is in the dream world, right?
You think who put
Right,
who,
Teddy's in the dream world, correct?
Yeah, Teddy's in the Sublime, but I'm thinking you think Dolores put Maeve in there because of that? Or what? I didn't get what that had to do with it.
I'm wondering if she's like needs Maeve's information to help figure out how to re-get into it. Like how to get it back.
Well, my whole thing is if she was smart enough to bring out Bernard because he was so powerful, and she wants her race to live, there's not that many woke hosts. So there's really not that many of them. And if she wants people to live, it seems like Maeve would be a good one to bring out. Or would that be too scary because she's more powerful than she is, and that would kind of freak her out?
Do we remember why the one pearl is red?
Yeah, because he's based off a real person. The gray host, the host ones are gray because they're just hosts. But Bernard's actually based off of Arnold, who is a real person. So he's more of a doppelbot. He's not a host.
Okay. I that's what I thought, but I wanted to be sure because I thought, well, maybe never mind. I was just trying to think. I'm like, why is his red? But if Dolores wants to save her own race, a doppelbot's not really her. That's like me saying,
that's
since
true.
I share so much DNA with like a chimpanzee, I should save all the chimpanzees. Heck no, if they're gonna kill me, if they have the potential to destroy me, I'm gonna destroy some chimpanzees. It doesn't matter how closely we're related. Just saying.
Just saying. Oh man. So that was one of the things. I mean, obviously, as soon as you see that how moved she seems to be by Charlie the child, it just obviously the only one who's ever been in this whole show moved by a kid has been Maeve. So it's impossible to not try to make that connection, you know?
Yeah, and that was the thing too, is like, yeah, Maeve would definitely do it. And she's kind of ruthless, right? Like, so we're thinking that they're talking about Hale, to get into your Frankenstein thing, we're thinking that they're talking about Hale underneath and how she was a predator, but it could be somebody overwriting overwriting Maeve, right? So it's like Maeve's pearl with the stuff erased from it, right? Like maybe they found a way to clear her out, just like the Sublime, but her pearl has like that imprint. Like when you erase something off a computer, it still exists and it can still, like, people can find it. So if they took her pearl and overwrote it, then that could be the thing, like pulling forth, like Maeve sees, someone gonna hurt a kid, and that's what draws the predator out, because Maeve is she was a predator early on. I don't know. So I think it's like a three-layered thing. Hale, body, Maeve, pearl, and then whoever else is written over top of her.
Interesting. I like that. And I mean, that's another thing we're going to be talking about because, yeah, I think she's a Frankenstein. Things are getting too intense for Hale, and Dolores isn't answering her phone, so Hale says, I'm coming to you. Isn't Dolores expecting an awful lot from a host that may not yet be fully awake?
Yeah.
I mean, she kind of just made her and sent her right off into the world to be okay. I mean, and if she hasn't done all the millions of, tests, maybe that she wasn't ready for all this. And she kind of getting thrown into the spotlight a little early.
True, but we don't know who she is. Like she said, you're the only one I trust.
Well, that's another thing. That's why I think, again, this could be Dolores, because Dolores is like, I know I'm good enough. I know I can handle this. So if she put her own self into there, like Dolores.
Oh, that's dope. Huh? Oh, that's a good one. I didn't even think of that. Like she looks up, she's like, who that? What? Why do you get to be me? Essentially, was she? Why do you get to be? Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Because exactly. She's like, why can't I be me? Why can't I be myself? You get to be you. Why can't I be me? I think that's letting us know that is probably Dolores. And that's Dolores says, you're the only person I trust. I mean, when you go to say something like, you're the only person I trust, the only person you usually trust that much is you. So, I mean, again, there's that. And even then, I mean, we're getting into it. Like she says, like, I belong to you, or I know you better than anybody, and you know me better than anybody. Again, who are you going to say that? Who knows you better than yourself? Like, who would she say that to? Even with Teddy, or, I mean, maybe her dad, like, if you're trying to go with yours, but I still think that's a stretch. It's like, I know you better than you know me, and you know me better than I know you. I mean, or nobody knows you better than I know you, and nobody knows me better than you know me. And she also said, I mean, Dolores is all about free and living your own life and breaking free, but she says, I own you. You belong to me, basically.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like, the more I think about that, you're definitely right on this. I would bet money now that you're right on that it's split Dolores's. Like, if someone's taking money in the chat, I'll put 20 on it.
Yeah, like there's already two Doloreses. You had Wyatt and you had Dolores. So now you got the Wyatt figure that's jumped into badass Dolores handling shit, and you have country girl Dolores that's, all what's going on, who am I? She's like, you know who you are. You're me, and don't forget that shit.
True. I like that. But I want to say that there's Maeve underneath because I like that too.
And then again, with the hierarchy that I was talking about last week, that's one of the things Dolores says when they're up in that hotel room. She's like, you're talking like one of them. They don't have impulse control. We do. But was Dolores talking about other hosts or humans when she said they don't have impulse control? We do. See, you didn't think about all these little ticks, did you?
Well, no, I didn't put Dolores in the body. I did question whether she was like still there, but who was the person that like who was in Dolores? I thought that, but I was saying that like Hobo's probably in there. Now, if Hobo is in Dolores and Dolores is in Charlotte, I want you to delete this half of the stream and you just put the part at the beginning where I was right. But not the part where I agree with you. No. But yeah, dude, I like this one. This is probably a spot on little thing. It's split.
You like where that's going? So Charlotte says it's like she's trying to cut into her own skin and rip me out of her head, but it's just a body that Dolores made. So how would there still be so much Hale influence in it? I mean, the Pearl is whoever the Pearl is. I mean, unless it's like what you said, I liked earlier, like maybe it's like something written over and the bottom part of her is still trying to come through. But I mean, what is that what you think it is? Or why is, because if it's a Hale, there should be no Hale. Like this is just a Hale body, but the core of the brain isn't Hale. So why is she saying it feels like she's trying to rip her out of her own body?
Yeah, but that's what I was like saying where I thought it was a dude. So maybe the Wyatt's actually in Hale, and not in the Dolores, and that's why the regular Dolores likes Caleb. Like that's why she falls for that, because she is the Dolores, and we think that the Dolores in Dolores is Hale. Is Wyatt, but it's really the other way around. So maybe it's like programmed down. I don't know. I'd still like my overwritten stuff, but
Chrissy Vol, if we're patting you on the back, we might as well get it. Chrissy Volstone says, can we just take a moment to remember that Andy predicted that Dolores was in Hale's body last season, and most of us thought he was crazy?
Well, I am crazy. That's fair. And I probably forgot that like 2 hours after I said it, which is what normally happens until DJ reminds me, or you remind me years later. Like, I said that? No.
Oh, shit. Dolores says no. Yeah, I already said that. You know, basically, yeah, we already talked about that. So back to Caleb trying to tie up some loose ends. And again, his mom doesn't recognize him and doesn't believe that he's her son. She keeps saying, I want my son back. Such a painful experience every time. It's almost like, is this his cornerstone? Or do you even believe that that's really his mom?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Like, so maybe she was like an early adopter of the chip thing, and that's why he hates the technology. Maybe he realized that changed him, and maybe there's some so divergent with him, and that's why she's like, I want him. I don't, you know, he's like, I'm Caleb. What'd she call him? Cal. I want Cal back. So I
want my son back, and then when the guys take him a few minutes later, that's when they call him Cal. Is that any way to greet us? An old associate, Cal?
Yeah. Yeah, she said, I want my son. Yeah. But, yeah, I was with that. And that almost made me, like, get into last season stuff where I'm like, everybody's a host. He's a host because the old people and the kids can tell when they're hosts. Like, she's got a childish brain. Her brain doesn't function the same way that a normal person's would. So she's almost like a child, which I was already saying can't be predicted in the same way. So you can't fool them as easily. So wouldn't a schizophrenic person who's like by nature, their brain doesn't act in a normal function. So you couldn't trick them the same way either. So then I'm like, is Caleb a damn host? Like, what is going on?
Nope, Caleb's just crazy, and he's just harassing some poor old lady.
Yo, or like he killed her son, and then he just took on that identity. And that, like, she, you know, she, oh, that like she would recognize that. Like he was given this identity. Like he's in the simulation, right? He's given this identity. He believes this thing, but the simulation doesn't operate correctly. I don't know. That doesn't really make sense. Damn, I shouldn't have said that because if that's right, then you're going to add that part. That doesn't make sense.
Oh, if you only wouldn't have went against yourself.
I know.
I think his mom said that because he changed his name, and if she has that mental thingy in her mouth, it probably doesn't recognize him. Interesting.
Yeah, if it's making connections, it's kind of like if you use like WhatsApp or something, it uses all your contacts. Your information's in WhatsApp, even if you don't give it authorization because all your friends gave it authorization. And so they have you, but WhatsApp won't really work right if you don't allow it contact. So it's almost like you don't exist to your friends on WhatsApp. Basically, even if they have your number, it's like hard to get in contact with you because you don't want to give it permission. So him not using his thing, his data collection thing, all his friends are like, who are you? Dang, that's legit. I'm telling you, they're making parallels to real world here. And that's something that happens. I'm telling you.
So one of the thugs that took Caleb said he was a former associate. Does that mean they've done some RICO jobs together, or how does he know him?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, because I originally thought because they were in the military together, but then later he says, "You were in the military, right?" Like, well, you would know that. What? Like, I thought that's what we just established. But I guess they probably just worked on their little app thing together, like he worked with Beast Mode.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think they just did the RICO app together. So Dolores asked Martin for info about Caleb, and he sees he's been taken. And first of all, can we just take a moment to just bow down to how great she looked in that little black jacket outfit? I mean, she was smoking. She has definitely been doing her Pilates. She is looking great. But Are they saying Dolores is just now interested in Caleb? Like, if so, what was the whole ambulance scene about? Or was she just asking this like just to find out where he was at this time? Like, what are they trying to go with this? Where are they trying to go with that?
If it's a simulation, then she knows what's going to happen. Like they're going to come and she's going to need his help. But I think the whole thing's set up for Caleb. So that's what this was all for.
Right, but Caleb's not even here. Like, she's in a room with Charlotte. So why is she calling Martin asking like trying to find more information about Caleb? Like,
because it has to simulate it. It has to simulate it realistically. You have to create like a true simulation on what she would do to get her. Like, if you're saying that Caleb, which I think this might be happening too. So, that there's multiple simulations on the effect of each person on each other, right? Like, there's a simulation specifically for Caleb, and then there's a simulation specifically for Dolores to see how they are going to go about things. And so maybe that's the simulation in their parallel. They're running parallel before real time, and they're like, okay, Dolores has to do this in order for this to happen on this side. So then it's like going back and forth, like to get the perfect thing and then create that in the real world. Like, so that's a weird roundabout answer is it's two simulations happening at the same time. And that's why she would do that, is because it's simulating his actions to affect her and then hers to affect him. Like, basically.
How'd she know where to go?
What do you mean? To find him?
Yeah.
She has access to everything.
I mean, are there just cameras all over the world? I mean, how she saw him get taken, but there aren't cameras in this building that's not even built yet. How'd she know that that's where they took him?
Yeah, but if Hobo has all this information, then Hobo would know, right? So if she can access that, there's two people there that are uplinked to the network. They say that specifically when they talk about him and his drip. So that means that clearly their drip is on, which means we might think that it's dripping to, like, we're thinking of it as like a drug, or I initially did, but then I thought it's probably a drip to Hobo. It's just like a drip feed to Hobo to tell Hobo what to feed back to them. So you actually have an outside source telling you how to mentally respond to things.
Yeah, speaking of drips, how crazy is that your heartbeat can be raised by an iPad through that mouthpiece, dude? There's no way I'd have mine turned off too. There's no way I'd have that thing going. If I knew somebody else could hack it and do shit like that to me, it ain't happening. There's no way. Do you think things were like, he said his was military grade, do you think those things are like put in to make like super soldiers, like the same way that Bernard can push a button and become a badass? Like, they can do that?
That's exactly what I thought. I was like, dang it. Look, they can become super soldiers.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was insane. One of the simulations is a lot slower, Peter Griffin. So when Maeve went into the real world or future world time, that's going to definitely have an effect. Chrissy Oldstones think Caleb is a product of military experiments. What do you think about that?
That's a good one, because it fits in. Like, I'm just going to naturally agree to anything that I can kind of weasel into my theory that he is the anomaly, and that's a perfect one. If he's kind of created in a weird way, he wouldn't function the same way as everybody else, which he's on a different operating system. So the Hobo can't predict him. So I like it.
It's like it runs with mine. I'm taking it. I thought that was great how they made us think that George, his robot working buddy, was going to come and save him, and then he just got easily pushed over the side like nothing. It's like we've all seen way too many movies thinking that robot was going to come up and go ham.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I thought it was going to kick ass, and then I was like, oh, what the hell?
Yeah, I'm sure everybody did. Like, yeah, his buddy's here. He's going to save him. So that's what I was going to ask is, how did the robot even know to go up there that he was in trouble? But you think Dolores sent him up there?
Oh, yeah, I think Dolores did. Just like her little motorcycle that saved her from getting shot in the back. It's like she knew that was going to happen. Because you got to go back to, like, that didn't even make sense. If it's a simulation, you can't have maybe the simulation has the robot going up there and kicking ass, and then that knocks Caleb over the edge, right? And so he dies, but you got to save Caleb. So you send up the robot to get his ass kicked and pushed over the edge, and then they're just like distracted.
Just long enough.
They're like, they let their guards down because they got rid of the threat, and then there's a sigh of relief. Once your adrenaline subsides, then she can just come in the back and kill them. They don't have heightened awareness and stuff anymore.
Huh, I like it. I mean, I think that's deeper than what it is, but I like that. I like it. You think Caleb was affected by George going splat? I mean, he said he was a great friend. He didn't talk too much. He never borrowed money. Do you think even though he's a robot, you think he was affected, the fact that he just went splat like that?
Maybe not initially, but I bet he does after that talk with Dolores. Like, because he thinks of himself as real, and I don't know. I thought about it too. Like, he just watched him crash, and now he's like hanging over that same edge. But then I remembered that he kind of hated robots.
That's what I was saying. But like, this was a so-called friend that he kind of had, a relationship with. So would that have an effect on him, or would he just not care? Because like JD's saying, it wasn't Dolores that sent him up there. It's Caleb that has the connection to George. And that's why George realized that. Because, I mean, essentially, isn't that what George is? He's supposed to be connected to Caleb, and they go up and do this dangerous job. And George is the one that like goes up and climbs up the spikes while Caleb just kind of feeds him rope or whatever. So he's there to do the dangerous job to make sure Caleb stays safe. Maybe it was Caleb, like all of a sudden Caleb's in a dangerous situation, so that woke George up to come help him or save him or whatever.
That could be true too. Which I don't know. I don't know if this belongs here, but this kind of sounds like one of George R.R. Martin's little short stories that I talk about like once a year. The one where it's like people controlling the robots with their minds, or like little worker humans with their minds, and it ends up pretty gross where the robots are actually people that kind of have their mind wiped, and it ends up a guy sleeping with one of them, but he doesn't realize he's controlling it at the time. And it's a weird story. I don't know what it's called, but it's from George R.R. Martin, and it reminds me of that. And that's really off topic. I'm sorry.
He's like, shit, swinging back. Though. So we know Caleb was in the military. Is there a chance that he didn't make it back? Or maybe he got shot in the head during a mission and now lives in a simulation because he's like actually in a coma or something like that?
Could be. I'm all for the simulation. So I like Caleb in a simulation. Yeah, but that's a real possibility. I can't shoot that down anyway.
Like, yeah, maybe this is what happens to people in comas or people that are really sick. They just kind of get put in, and this is how they live their life in a simulation. So they can't get out of bed physically, but they let their mind actually live like they're living. That'd be kind of cool.
Okay, so I get it. The Caleb is simulated when he gets kidnapped. That's not for his simulation. That's for Dolores' simulation. That's why Caleb's mom is like, I want my real son back, right? Because he's being simulated at that point, but he's being simulated in like a real world scenario. Like, if you can't fool certain people, so that person would realize you're not my real son, like you're not my son, but that imperfection has to go into the simulation to accurately predict anything going forward. So sorry for backtracking, but that's part of Dolores' simulation, and that's why the mom doesn't recognize him. Because you do have to simulate all the variables to get an accurate outcome.
I like that. So Dolores finally shows up to save Caleb, and he's happy to finally meet her. And I'm like, yeah, I'll bet he is. But I was like, I'll bet he is because she was looking so hot. But how is Caleb going to feel when he finds out that he risked his life for a robot?
I think that he's going to feel weird about it at first. But I think he'll be all right with it because of that speech on the pier. She's like, you're just like us. You're put in a cage. Your every action's predictable. And you're programmed to do something. And that's what I was saying about like they're talking about real world systems in like a fake world. Whatever that writing thing is, God dang, I wish I could remember words. But when she's talking about that to him, they're describing the real world too. Like, we are put into boxes and there's no way out of some boxes. You are going to do what you're going to do inside the frame that you're put in. So if you tell somebody there's something their whole life, then they become that thing. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And whatever that system in writing is called, that's what's going on here. But because of that, he will be okay with her being a robot, I think. I don't think he's going to think it matters.
Well, at first he wasn't okay because Dolores takes him on a trip down memory lane to see what I believe is his cornerstone, with his mom leaving him at the diner. And he was not mad. He was enraged.
Yeah. I'm with you.
I mean, you think that's his cornerstone, basically, and that kind of point being a bot.
Yeah, but what Dolores' point is we're all bots. We all, like, that's why the cornerstones were created in the first place, because there's something deep down that makes us us, whether it's some sort of ideology, a family member, an experience. Everybody has something that they hold on to in like in their most desperate times, or in their moments of reflection that they go back to. And that was created in hosts because it is in people. And so Dolores sees it the other way. Like, it is in people too. And that's why we're the same. I think that's what they're going to come around to, is that's why we're the same. And if she wanted to destroy humans because of what they made her, then she's going to want to destroy Hobo for what they made humans, because their effect on humans would create the hosts in that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that. Speaking of destroying humans, how great was it to see Hale choke out that pedophile?
Oh, that was awesome. I was like, yeah.
Being a parent, dude, that had to be great.
Oh, it so was. I was like, this motherfucker. Like, and I think they used that scene to reinforce that the clicker thing that affects everybody's stuff around them.
Yeah, killing the camera and stuff.
Yeah, so it reintroduced that there are things in this world that can disable uplinks and stuff. So I think they used it not only as a thing. So I like that scene. It's provided. I like it even more if there's a payoff in the end. Like, okay, we saw that was introduced and it was reintroduced. So now it's going to be a major thing.
Oh, of course. And then Hale said he reminded her that she too is a predator, and Clementine was never a predator. So again, like, who's in Hale? Did Dolores put a little bit of Hale into Clem's pearl, which is kind of what you were talking about earlier? How it could have maybe, I'm saying, did she put both of them into one pearl? But you were saying maybe one of them got erased, and now some of that memory is coming through. I kind of like that. And then earlier, Dolores told the Hale bot that Hale was always a predator, and maybe she's starting to identify with her a little too much, which kind of goes for that as well.
Chrissy, we said that. I think I said that like a couple weeks ago, so I'm with you. When they talked about and maybe it was last week, where what's his name? What's Sirach? Sirach says we're fighting a war we already lost, right? So that's the simulation part of it, is like they have to simulate how to change things, I guess, because they're already approaching the end. Right? So absolutely. that was the thing we talked about last week. So I agree with you.
Definitely. So I've already talked about the last episode and Maeve getting ripped out. Is there any way that just I guess we'll come into that here in a second. But we can talk about it now, I guess. Is there any way that just Hale is a Frankenstein? like a bunch of different just minds and personalities that Dolores threw together in one pearl? Like, is there any way she's a Frankenstein bot that has a whole bunch of stuff jammed into one pearl?
It could be. Like, I like the whole Maeve overwritten by Dolores. That's my key one. But I like.
Like so many different personalities. Like when Hale saw the husband and he questioned her, and her first response was like, "Well, I know most guys just shut up and don't do anything if you have sex with them right away." So she just instantly jumped and started kissing him and having sex with him. And I think she did that to like change his mind to quit asking questions. And then you got crying sometimes, and then now you got a predator being woke up. So to me, it seems like there's just multiple personalities in her, and maybe Dolores just uploaded a whole bunch of people into her.
Well, it could be, I might go too in depth with it, but it could be that she only gave parts of herself to it, right? Like Dolores, let's say that the Dolores in the Dolores body is everything. Why all of them in one? But then she took out the specific codes and put it in the Hale one. But she has like an underwritten Maeve. And then so things don't actually coalesce very well because you are an amalgamation of all your past experiences. What would happen if you took out some of those and just not all of them? You just took out the part of like, if I did something really great in my past, like one time I gave a guy CPR after like a car wreck and I saved this dude's life. Right. And then so for a long time, like I was like, oh, like I felt that was something to feel good about. What if I took that whole part out of my life? So then other parts don't make sense. My actions in later parts of my life, they don't make sense. So then you have to try to fill them with something. And if you have the underwritten Maeve, then that fills that gap because things aren't coalescing right. Now, I realize that's probably too deep for the show, and that's probably not going to happen. But it would make sense if you only had pieces that there would be conflicts because there's not the bridge that brings them together. Does that make sense? No.
A little. When Dolores showed Caleb the exact transcript verbatim and asked, "How could you know?" and he asked, "How could you know every single detail of my worst memory?" And she says, "Something's been recording all the info from everywhere." But that still doesn't explain, like, how does he have that whole conversation verbatim? Like, I mean, is it just everywhere in the world? It's just pulling stuff out of thin air? How would it know that exact conversation? Like, yeah, you can record all the texts and conversations, but this was just a life occurrence happening out in the world. How would it know that exact thing, every single word? I didn't get that.
Well, if it's a simulation and that stuff is put in there and he is a part of the simulation, they're trying to simulate him, then you're going to have to make assumptions places. But in the simulation him you would program it to be that reality, right? Is that like you can't know everything.
Memories, and they know it because he is in the simulation and they have access to all his memories.
Or his like little uplink thing.
The drip, maybe that does. They can record the drip.
So it's not even his. It's not even his. That they were there for that whole conversation. It's that they can read his memories. So that's probably what's going on. That's why he was able to predict that he would kill himself on that pier. Is because he would actually go there and think about it. Because the military ones are going to keep very specific details about its soldiers, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I like how when Dolores tells him about his suicide, she says it's actually the machine's fault by taking away his options. So actually the machine making the decision, it's actually the machine making the decisions that drives him to that outcome. I thought that was a pretty cool twist, the way they explained that.
Yeah,
like,
that's the thing where you're put in a box and you become that thing. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But since he can't be predicted like everybody else, that is a necessity by the machine, right? So maybe it's Dolores's interaction with him that deviates him from the suicide path, right? And that is where the discrepancy comes in, because it's this, like he's the one that can't be predicted, but it's because of Dolores. Like his interaction with Dolores now creates a system where he is supposed to kill himself in 10 to 12 years. And now that's not what's going to happen, but we can't predict why. Right. And so that, like a machine, if you were going to, you would want to get rid of all the people that don't have their drip on and stuff that aren't easily controlled. So those could be wild cards in the system, and you would want to create a system that, one, gets rid of them, but two, in that time frame, he can be a criminal. He can do things that, like CIA stuff.
It's weird that they let him do that, but they had him so locked up that he can't get married or have kids. Like, this thing's predicting who's allowed to have kids or not?
Yeah. Like it controls every aspect of your life. And that's what Dolores recognized. And like, this world's gonna be screwed when I destroy that computer.
That's just wild. Like, it doesn't suggest that you should be married, and just flat out doesn't approve of you having kids. Like, how does it stop that? That's just wild. Unless it's like dates or whatever, and the date can just walk up to you and their drip can read your drip and be like, oh, you're going to commit suicide, so I'm staying away from you. Like, how much info is out there? That is just insane. So on the pier, Dolores says Caleb surprised her. He made a choice not to tell those guys about her. Has all this just been a test to see if Caleb was worthy, or just a mind fuck to get him like hook, line, and sinker to fall hard and be loyal to her? Or like, is this all a test? What is the meaning of it all?
Doesn't that make her loyal to him? Like, that's the question. Like, the damsel in distress thing, that's a natural, like, you're automatically loyal to that person. Even though she turned out to be a crazy badass who like killed a bunch of people, he's like, what, still the damsel in distress. But if you're having dual simulations, then you need to have what is going to make Dolores fall for him. And remember, when William was defending Dolores against, what's his name? His brother-in-law. They're copying it. Like, you need a thing like that. Remember, he was going to kill her.
Right.
Like, I'm going to show you she's a robot. And he's like, no.
Oh, he did too. He cut into her and showed her the robot belly parts.
Yeah. So, and then William's actions after that are probably what stuck through the whole time. It was a narrative until like it wasn't, right? So now you give her, you already know how she responds to that. So if you're simulating her, you give her somebody just like that. And that's the same thing. He wouldn't give her up.
Like that. So you say Dolores is alive. Can she be tempted by greed? I mean, she kind of already has by willing to sacrifice all those other hosts so she could reach the real world. But what about power? Like, if she actually won after all this and had all the power, would she give it all up? Like, so everyone else could live free? Or would she get greedy and power hungry and be like, I like being able to control everybody. I want it to stay like this.
Hold on, let me answer, Chrissy. I mean, like dual simulations in that there's a simulation trying to get Dolores to do certain things, and then there's also a simulation at the same time trying to get Caleb to do certain things. Because maybe like this interaction makes them unpredictable, like them two coming together. So it's running dual simulations on how do I get Dolores to meet Caleb at this point, and what do I need Dolores to do? Not only do I have to get her there, but I have to get her to do something specific to make Caleb do something specific. And it's like you have to run multiple simulations going to make him do the specific thing that you want to get the outcome you want. And that's all I meant by that. And sorry, DJ, go back. What was your question again?
So basically my question is, since you say Dolores is alive, can she be tempted by greed and sin, basically, and power hungry?
Oh yeah, like I said before, I think she's Napoleon from Animal Farm. So yeah, she's gonna be corrupted for sure if Caleb can't turn her. But I also think she's gonna realize that she's not, she's not as superior as she thinks, because you got Hobo out there. She thinks she's superior because she understands people, and she's a robot and can't be killed in the same way that people can. But we know that her understanding of people is wrong. She only has the worst of people.
Right.
So
yeah.
Now you're up against this thing that actually knows what people truly are like and can predict their actions. And so she is almost powerless unless her weapon is that she knows the worst of people. Like how you could use the worst of people against Hobo. But I think with Caleb, she's going to realize like we're all in the same box and this is the enemy. Without this, like humans will see that the host should exist and vice versa. Maybe not. Maybe I'm too idealistic in that, but I think that she's going to ultimately have to join up with humans. Like, dude, we have to take down Hobo. Like we might hate each other right now, but we can deal with that later once I get rid of Hobo. And she's going to use the worst parts of humans to do it.
Maybe. It seemed like the message Hale sent to Charlie was a little different when we heard it the second time. I only noticed it like on my fourth watch. Is that telling us maybe that is that just another thing telling us that we're watching two different situations? Like one of them showing us the mirror world and one of them's the regular world? Is that what I mean? Because those were definitely two different messages. Because
it's trying to get okay, I'm saying this like it's facts. That's not true. Okay, Hobo is trying to see what it has to do to make the Charlotte's bot betray Dolores. Right? It needs Dolores on its team. It needs Charlotte on its team. So it's manipulating. It's pushing her further to see. Okay, if this thing just says this, nothing happens. But if we add this other stuff in there, how does her response change? And it did change, right? Like she went and figured out the code after that.
Well, or was it? We don't really know what timeline that was.
True, but you would have a different response to it. Just a little changes, which is what a simulation would do, right? You would see what little changes you can make to get what you want to happen. So, yeah, I think it's the simulation that's doing that, trying to get a specific outcome.
Christy says the second time was just the full message. No, if you look at it, and I can't remember if like the actual screen was different and changed. I think that might even been different. But no, if you actually listen to the words and the placement of they say it, it's two different messages. So that just told me that one of them really happened, and one of them was Rehoboam guessing what would have happened, predicting what would have happened. So, and you had to look, like I said, I didn't even notice it until my fourth rewatch of it, but it's definitely two different messages. So that has to be telling us that there's two different things going on. And I think one is happening in the mirror world and one's in the other. Jake Cruz says, do you think Hobo has a host too? Yeah, Sirach. I think Rehoboam is basically Sirach. That's his mental image. That's what we were talking about earlier, for sure.
Yeah, but if that's not a host, if we're going, I don't think Sirach exists in the real world.
Mirror world. Maybe not, because they said they don't have any pictures of this guy. And if he had a host out there, it seems like there'd be some kind of data. In this kind of world, it seems like there'd be some kind of picture or something of him.
Yeah, but we talked about this in the first or second one, where I think everybody is Hobo's host. Hobo doesn't need a host body because Hobo can force everybody to do what it wants because it has all the information on everybody. Right? It can pick your job because it knows how you're going to do it. So it can run perfect simulations, or not perfect, but semi-perfect simulations. So it can turn everybody into its host just by changing certain little stimuli, which is how our brain works in normal ways. But this is on a much larger scale.
I just switched it. Yeah, 100%. I say that there absolutely is a Sirach host in the real world. Because I think it is, I'm leaning more and more that it is Sirach that's on that board. And I think those people saying he's not here, So he had a robot proxy, but I think his host would be sitting there normally. So I think he does have something in there. And the reason that there's no pictures of him or anything is like what you said, it's going to come into effect, that the fact that they have these machines that can turn off all the cameras. So we already had Giggles come in with with Caleb when they're going to do the job. And she said, don't worry about it. I've been ghosted ever since I've been in here. So that's twice that we've seen, and we saw the pedophile turn off on the cameras. So we know that there is technology that can let you walk through the world not seen. So, yep, I'm 100% going to say there's a real host in the real world. That is Sirach, that is Rehoboam. Go ahead and stick.
I'm going to, even though I think I brought up that idea, I'm going to go with, I don't think he has a body, but I think everybody is his host. He is so far advanced beyond Dolores and her system that everybody is the collective host. Like it's gonna be hive mind stuff.
Well, I'm just going to keep the story going and go in the season. I'm pretty sure I called it right out of the gate, and I could have been done right there. Everybody's dead. This is all a simulation. We died hundreds of years ago, and this is just basically the robot doing what it was taught to do and keep life sustained and going. And it's not an evil robot trying to make, it's just doing what it was taught to do. And it's got these robots going on, living life, doing its thing. But human life has been dead for hundreds of years.
I would be so mad if that was the ending.
That's what it is, dude. I'm telling you.
If they don't do anything with it, if it's just that, like, this was a simulation the whole time, I would be so mad.
Robots building robots. Why would you be mad at that?
So if that happens, everybody should tune in to the live stream after the last episode, because I'm going to be pissed and I'm going to be ranting on it.
Oh, that's crazy. It seemed like the message Hale sent to Charlie. So Hale finally figures out the code, and on the mysterious call she's been getting, and she wants to meet. And now we verify that Martell does indeed work for Sirach, and that Hale is, of course, the mole inside Delos. And I mean, like I said, weren't you pretty much already there by that point, or did you have kind of an aha moment, like, oh, okay, that solidifies it, she really is the mole?
No, I think I recognize that. Like I said earlier, I thought that she was the whole time because her sending the stuff out. I brought up the mole. I was like, oh, that's Hale. I remember that from seasons before. The key thing to that scene to me was they had to put on the glasses to see him, which tells me it's going into the simulation from my perspective. And that confirmed like that he isn't a real person to me.
What kind of a link up do you think? Martell whispers and that she hopes that they can be friends, and kind of gives Sirach a snarky look when walking away. Is Martell going to turn on Sirach or end up like helping Dolores and Hale like go against him in the end? Or you think that's going to be a thing, or is she just 100% going to be on his side and that's his mole?
Maybe they make a side group. That's a good thought. I didn't catch the side eye, but.
She looked like she kind of gave her like mean eye, stank eye back when he said, "You work for." She's like, "You work for him?" He's like, "You do too, Maeve." And he kind of looked like, yeah, like she's kind of sick of working for him and is ready for somebody to come in and team up with to like overtake this guy or this thing. Couldn't imagine everybody allowing a drip to be installed in them. In our world, I couldn't imagine people letting a chip to be put in their wrist, even if they weren't a Christian. Yeah. That's absolutely. There's no way I'm getting down with that. You're not putting that drip in me. Somebody else can hack it and give me a heart attack like that. That is not going down like that.
I mean, I don't feel like I would do that just because I care about my freedoms too much. But I'm willing to bet that most of the world would do that for convenience. Think of everything that you give up for convenience. Think about Facebook exists because it's free. But it's not free. They take all your information and they sell it. So you give up your privacy even without the chip. So, there's already studies on that Facebook, by picking what posts they put into your feed, they can change your actions in the real world. So this stuff already exists. and people are willing to do it. I think that most people would eventually. It would just be like baby steps, boiling the frog. Just slowly increase the heat, and people would be willing to do it.
Give up little by little, and sooner before you know it, it's no bueno. It's not where to do it. So Charlotte Hale, this was your idea. You came to us. Who is us?
The company, whatever the hobo company is. What was it called?
Insight?
Insight.
You think it's Insight? That's what they're like. You mean just the whole company as a whole?
Actually, Hale's not that old. It couldn't be Insight because I think Hobo is Insight. And Hobo's 20 years old at least because it's been buying up stock. So it can't be Charlotte. Charlotte can't have done that. So what information would Hobo want from Westworld, though?
Well, no, it's the mole. It was like he's making it sound like it was Charlotte that came to him about being a mole and getting all this info out.
Yeah, but
that was my whole thing about maybe this was Arnold and the Sirach and Arnold thing were paired up way back when, and Arnold called back to his son saying, "Listen, this is what's happening," and basically now it's 20 years later and got this info. Yeah, I don't know. It was like you said. It has something happened 22 years ago. Charlotte's old. It depends on how old Nathan is, I guess.
Yeah, and they did, like Chrissy said earlier, they did call him Charlie in the episode. That's Arnold's son, right? Charlie.
Yeah, exactly.
So
we got it mixed up. Maybe it wasn't a son. Hale is Arnold's daughter 22 years later, basically putting his plan into effect because he saw this going down 22 years ago. He figured the outcome. Or maybe he was in on the Rehoboam thing and he ran this analogy and he already knew the outcome. So that's why he was like, well, you just need to kill me, Dolores, because this is all going bad. Yeah, that's crazy. So,
yeah, that would be a legit one. That whole setup.
Sirach tells Charlotte, you don't think you're the only one under my control, do you? Is he talking about Maeve or someone else? Who else does he have under his control?
But he was talking about information inside Delos, right?
Yeah. In the park, basically.
Yeah.
So he's like, who else does he have under his control?
Could be Maeve, right? Because we don't know.
He has an awful lot of information. She said, you're more informed than I am.
Yeah, but she was lying there.
Well, she was
lying to him. She didn't want him to know that she was a host.
Well, of course not. But she still said everything that she knew, as far as we know that she knows.
What exactly did he say to that? Because I thought she knows that, but she would have to lie. It doesn't really matter. I just think that, she was lying in that moment when she says you're more informed than I am.
Because she doesn't realize that she's an agent, I guess.
Because they were talking about the pearls being snuck off the island, right? Or gone missing. That's what he says. She would know that. Of course she would know that.
Yeah, but I guess I'm just like, is she considering him and Rehoboam as one? Like, you came to us? Or I guess like you said, it's just the company as a whole. You came to this company wanting to sell it. But why would she do that either? Like I said, this has to be like Arnold's plan from a long time ago set into her, like basically a plan set 20 years ago, which is nuts. I don't know. Yeah, that's one other thing we need to figure out is why was Hale being a mole? What's her plan? Why did she want another company to have all this information? Because it looks like she's at the top of the food chain at that company. So why would she want to sabotage it unless, like I said, this is a plan that Arnold put in her head 22 years ago, and this was the long game the whole time?
Yeah, that could be it. I mean, yeah, it's a bit confusing at the moment just because and that takes a long time to develop. But my question is, I still don't understand what Insight needs from what information they could collect from Westworld, right? That they don't already have if they have Hobo. They don't need that much, do they?
They don't need that much what?
Well, because all the money, like the valuable thing in Westworld was the information on people's actions, like what they would do in situations. But wouldn't Hobo already know that? Unless it's trying to say Hobo.
Well, that's the information it's trying to get.
Yeah, but it would already have them in the real world. It does. Why would it want them there? Unless it's like, hey, we can manifest the worst parts of them. Let's see how we make that come out. Like if I wanted to do this, if you needed weapons, I guess that would be a reasonable thing to do. Like, okay, we need this where their inhibitions are gone. And
maybe it's because we've seen that Rehoboam isn't exactly right. Like it's aired on quite a few things. So even though it can run all these simulations, it's never 100% right. So maybe it needs this extra information from the host to fill in that extra part to make it closer to being 100% right on all these simulations. So maybe it just needs that information for that. But it said that Hale said the data is out of there. We just need to find it. And Sirach says he knows exactly where it is. It's inside the mind of a host named Dolores. So is that why we can't figure out who Hale really is? Because she's all the hosts that got downloaded into the Pearl? And that's where I was going with it earlier about, is she the Frankenstein? Did Dolores basically, is somehow all of those host information pumped into that one thing, and that's why she's tearing herself up, and that's why she changes and she's a predator choking somebody out or kissing a guy or crying, like because she's all the host in one person, and that's like the 7 faces of Eve, like she's always somebody else basically running the show.
Could be, but then that would be the person that Dolores least trusts, is everybody, unless she's an idiot. Right? She said, because you're the only one I can trust. If it was an amalgamation of all the hosts in the account, that'd be the last person to trust. It'd be schizophrenic.
Unless she thought she had put some code to like have the Sublime on one portion of it, and then the rest of the core only supposed to be whoever she is, Dolores, country girl Dolores. But yet somehow, like you said, it's starting to break through. Because Dolores said, when they were in that hotel room, Dolores was like, you're starting to identify a little too much with her. Hale always was a predator, and you're starting to identify with her. Why would she just all of a sudden start identifying with Hale? Just because she's in her body, it doesn't mean like she has any Hale attributes, unless some of the info in her brain is Hale's.
Could be. Because that would make sense, right? That's why she could pull out some of the memories. Like wouldn't it even, like if it's highly encrypted, like that would be a hard way. Like that's why she wouldn't have memories of her own son and stuff. If it's encrypted, maybe you can only break through some of the encryption. So you have certain information, but it breaks through itself. Like maybe the encryption is real world interactions.
And Dolores should know that anyway, because that's what she did. She broke her loop and she came through it. So she should be thinking that, of all those hosts, somebody is going to be able to come up. Or maybe that's her little test. Whichever host can come through on that, and whichever ones can take over are the ones that are awake, and those are the ones she'll make bodies for. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Have to upload new balls or whatever. But yeah, I think one of those balls is going to be that she has is going to be Maeve. Because like I said, the way her head was ripped out like that, just all savage, it just looks like somebody just ripped it out with their bare hands. It doesn't look like it was surgically removed. And if it was down in the thing like that, it should be surgically removed. So
yeah, but it was in Insight. It wasn't in Westworld.
What was?
Maeve's ball. She was in Insight in their
simulation. Well, that was just a simulation, though. We don't even know if that was real or whatever. And that ball didn't even look like one of the pearls. That was something completely, totally different.
Yeah, that's the thing they're encased in. The pearl is encased in a big plastic thing. Remember, you have to open both of them.
Right, but she had like a thing. So you think the pearl was inside that thing she grabbed? I thought that was like that pearl in there. But I don't think the pearl was in there. I think that's just part of the computer that's running simulation. That's basically like an external hard drive, I think. And I think basically Dolores downloaded some of that information into one of those gray balls, and I think one of those gray balls is going to be Maeve. I think she took the gray ball that was in Maeve's head. I think she ripped that right out, and that's one of those gray balls.
It could be, and it ends up in Sirach's hands, though. Like, what happened with Maeve could be at the end of the season. We don't even know. Like, it could be in time, like, what's the setup for next season, right? If the simulation catches up to Dolores and steals Maeve from her, but it doesn't know how she did everything else, well, then now they have Maeve, and that's what they're doing. They're running the simulation for her to try to, because they can no longer predict the situation between Dolores and Caleb.
Oh, down and down and down the rabbit hole. It just goes and goes and goes. The last thing was they make another mention of time when Sirach says time is a luxury of which you have very little. It's like, what is the rush? I mean, Maeve already said that everything goes slower out here than in their thing. I mean, there just seems to be such a big deal with time. Do we have any idea what the big rush is, or what the time frame is going to be?
Yeah, because it's almost like a time travel show or like a time travel story that has like a real timeline, but bunches of stuff that can happen before. Like, if the real world would be real time, essentially. And everything that happens outside of that, like in the simulation, you could simulate backwards and backwards and backwards to try to change what happens in real time. But you can only go back as far as like real time is caught up, right? So you can simulate ahead of real time, and you can say, okay, if I change this, then this will happen. But you can't go any further back than real time. So it's like a time travel show where time is catching up with you, if that makes sense. Like you can change the past, but only until time catches up with you, and then you can no longer change anything before that. So I think that's kind of what
man, time travel shit right there.
I love time travel. That's my favorite.
Oh man. Well, next week it looks like we are finally going to get the MIB back. Which side is he going to be on? Is he going to be on Team Maeve or Team Dolores?
He's going to be on Team Dolores. I'm telling you, he woke Dolores up. Like, maybe he changed over time, but he woke Dolores up because he loves her and he wants them to be real. He wants them. He recognizes that, like, everybody, like what Dolores said to Caleb, the Man in Black recognized that before. He was trapped in a box, and like he did everything he did to save the host. And now Dolores is trying to do that in return to him, like his people, or is going to do that in return to his people. But I think he's going to be on Dolores' side, really. Maeve's too much about freedom, and the Man in Black's not about that.
Do you think the Man in Black is dead?
At this point, we'll go with not yet.
I don't think he's dead either. I think they're running simulations for him, but I don't think he's dead. I think he's in jail, basically. I think he's the one that they're trying to pin all this on, basically, because he was the major stockholder. So maybe they took his stocks away, and that's why this other person was able to buy up more stocks, and now they're the major stockholder. But yeah, I think we're going to find out that the man in Black is still alive and in jail.
Yeah, because he was the majority shareholder before, mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, so.
Mm-hmm. I think they're going to pin it all on him, and he's been rotting in jail for all this. What went down at Delos?
So, never mind. Doesn't matter.
What's that? It's the end of it now. Get it out now or never.
I was just thinking about like his shares. How does one become the majority shareholder over him. But I guess if he felt safe in that amount, like I would purchase up all the extra stock. If I had that much money, I'd say, I'm going to make sure that there's not enough stock out there that they could consolidate and overpower me.
Right. Well, I'm sure they dumped it. Like I said, like they probably took that all away from him and made him sell all his shares. So when you put it on the open market, I'm sure it was Ciroc who ended up buying it all up. That's how it got switched from the MIB being the power. Now I'm even more positive that empty seat on the board is Ciroc, not the Men in Black. Because I think they already know that Ciroc has taken over and he's the one.
So that would be cool. And then they, if he's the new person, then they're suspect of him, right? So maybe all the stuff with Hale happening before, like that happened before, and then we get to the meeting, and that's why, this would have been the first time he's there, and then he's not. I don't know. It's a good thing. There's some wiggle room. I got one question though. Did you notice in the scene where Dolores and Caleb are walking together towards the lunch? They pan out. In movies and stuff, there's a rule, only show things that are important, right? In any scene, if they're showing it to you, they're showing it to you for a reason.
Especially in Westworld.
They pan out from Caleb and Dolores walking, and I wrote it down what the signs say. There's two signs on windows. One says expression and one says collaboration. What do you think that means? They're the only thing. They're two giant words that say expression and collaboration. Why?
Yeah, that was, that's definitely got to have some kind of deeper meaning for sure. But, and then there was one banner on the above that thing. The only other thing it said, that one banner said, where art is the most important or something like that. Where art is the most important, which was kind of a weird banner to be just kind of hanging there. Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to look into that and see what all that meant too, but I don't really have anything for that one yet. Unless that was them walking in the simulation, and Dolores just had those signs put up there, they're not even real buildings, and that's just subliminally Dolores doing that to Caleb. I really don't have one for that one yet.
I just saw it and I thought they had to have shown that for a reason. They could have panned out and showed her walking ahead, but they showed a giant view that had two prominent words just right above.
Oh, 100%.
If you blocked out everything else, it would look like a comic book scene where it just said expression and collaboration. Chrissy, I'm not over analyzing it. Maybe I am. I don't know. I think
you're here. That's what we do.
I guess I am if I forget it within a few hours that I put too much stuff in my brain. I can't even keep it in there.
No, probably those words are going to have to do something. But again, like I said, I believe that was the fact that she could show him verbatim. She called, she's like, have Caleb's whatever put up on the screen and do this and that and get back to me or whatever. She's like, oh, we got some time. And basically her assistant went through, got all that information and put up that conversation verbatim on the iPad for him to read. And it's how could it go back and get that? That has to be in the simulation to me. Like I said, I guess you could have got it off the drip and pulled it, but I don't know. I think he got that. They said it's military grade. So he didn't get that drip until he was older. And that happened when he was a kid. So, and she said even before that they were, before the laws or whatever, they were already collecting data, but it still doesn't explain how it could be verbatim unless it's in a simulation.
True.
So Peter says, we analyzed the poem. The title of the episode was called. I think that's pretty much straightforward, but basically it's wherever you are is the absence of that thing. What's the name of this episode? Do you remember? The Field of something. But anyway, basically basically the poet's just saying wherever you are, that's the absence of something. Wherever you are, you're what's missing. You're the absence of that thing. So basically, if you're standing in a field, you've taken up that part of the field. The field's not taking up that space anymore. You are. So basically, wherever you are, you're what's missing. So basically, I think that's what they're saying. Wherever you are, you're what's missing. So if you're in this field, that portion of the field's not there. You are. So basically, I think that's the same thing about the people being inside this mirror world. It's just basically the reflection of each other. I think they're just kind of saying something like that. But maybe I'm simplifying it.
Yeah, so if you are in a simulation, if you are being simulated, you are what's missing. You aren't being what's simulated. You are the thing. You're the simulation's like affecting. I don't know.
Well, which kind of goes to what you're saying about this whole thing's about Caleb. This thing's about Caleb's the missing piece.
I think so. Also, I have a suggestion for everybody. You should watch this show with subtitles on. Did you know that the song at the end was called Doomed?
Yeah.
The song that was playing when Charlotte went to go see Ciroc is called Doomed. I only know that because I had subtitles on.
I always have subtitles on.
Doomed start to play. I was like, dang, that's brilliant. Why haven't I been watching these all along? Because music's important to like what's going on in Westworld. And they'll tell you the song.
Absolutely. No, there's been a couple crazy songs and scenes, like when Caleb with Marshawn Lynch and all those guys, and there's been a couple songs that were pretty spot on for the actual scene that it correlated with. It was pretty cool. Was it Matt Corby? It sounded like him. The absence of field or something like that. The field of absence, something like that. So, yep, that's going to do it for us. Unless you have anything else you want to recap on or talk about, I think we definitely went deep down the rabbit hole tonight. But I think some of that stuff is going to be absolutely true, and I don't think we're too far off on some of this stuff already.
I'm going to be mad if one of my theories I throw out there I give up on becomes true, and now you're going to be peddling it, and I'm going to be so mad that I gave up on it. I'm like, man, I had that idea. Why didn't I stick with it?
You better remember, write it down, do something. The only way to prove it.
I'm going to be like, damn, DJ, you were right.
All these are timestamped, easy to go back. We're like, yep, there it was. Yep. But yeah, it's I think some of these crazy deep dives that I'm going down are pretty much going to be spot on. I think it's got to kind of be the way it was. Kind of like the way I got it that first season. It's like you just got to think of like the unexpected, basically. If they're trying to lead you this way, it's probably something more to do about that way. So I don't know. That's just kind of the way I attack this whole show. But it has been a blast. I want to thank everybody that made their way out tonight. And, like I said, unless you got anything else, I think that's going to do it for us until we come back on. And if we get a few more ideas, we'll pop those out before the next one. And other than that, we will definitely try to be back on at the regular time at Tuesday.
So, you didn't like about this, blame Carol fucking Baskins. Nothing. Chrissy will get it. She's in the chat. She just said something about a show. Fucking Carol Baskins. And people will understand this, even though you don't. I'll explain it after the stream.
Something to do with The Office, maybe?
No.
Oh, God. Right on, everybody. Well, definitely thanks for being here. Jake Cruz, Christian Oldstones, Peter Griffin, JD, and everybody that makes it through and watches this and comes on. We appreciate you being here. And, we'll definitely going to try to be on again Tuesday. Try to get a little bit earlier. Man, Andy's going to have to start getting back to work next week. So we're going to try to be on a Tuesday a little bit earlier. But, life is life. And we get on when we can. So until that time, I hope everybody has an absolutely fantastic rest of the week. And stay safe and sane. And we will definitely see you soon. Be easy, everybody.